Hello and welcome to Photo Dilettante. What you're looking at is the Leica D-Lux 7. So, what is this thing? Leica D-Lux 7 is Leica's only, I'm get the strap off, Leica's only micro four thirds camera, and this is the only Leica product I've ever bought. And it was something, I bought it on something of a whim. A few years ago, quite a few years ago, when I was looking at Leicas in camera shops, before I really got into cameras and photography in any serious way. I used to wonder what all the hype was about. They look very beautiful, they're self-evidently beautiful objects, but I looked at some of the technical details back then and I thought, well, you can get more technologically advanced equipment much cheaper, smaller, more compact, blah blah. Now, were they then? This is well over 10 years ago, but now Leica and Panasonic have kind of joined forces, and it's a nice combination of heritage and refinement in design and engineering and technical prowess. I think it's a really good marriage, a really good combination. And so if you've got a Leica product, it's partially Panasonic Lumix, and if you've got a Panasonic Lumix product, it's partially Leica. And I think that's really good. I think they complement each other well. I think that works out well. I think it's good for everyone. It means Leica can still survive, and they can avail themselves of the economies of scale of a big company like Lumix Panasonic. And Lumix Panasonic can offer something with some Leica fairy dust on it to the unwashed masses like you and I. So so why did I buy this? Well, as you might be aware, there is a Panasonic equivalent of this, or a sort of sister model to this. And there've been two variations. So you've got the original, I think they call it the RX 100, and there's been two versions of this. I think you've got the early one called the D-Lux. I think it's called the Type 9, and this one is called the D-Lux 7. I don't know what the number's all about. Who knows? But so why did I buy this over the Panasonic one? Well, mainly design. But also the Leica color science. So Leica and Panasonic have a similar thing to Fujifilm. They have their film simulations. In Fujifilm, a kind of color grading sort of all-in-one filter thing. You can just snap away, click a few buttons, and you don't need to get into Lightroom or Pixlr or any kind of digital editing. You've got that film-like look if you're after that. They've got similar things. The Leica ones are different to the Panasonic, and I've been using this and they're nice. So that was something I was interested in sampling, if you like, and looking at. But also, they've got that strict rectilinear section of a circle, mid-century, early 20th century Bauhaus school of design thing going on. They're much more rigorous in their application of that on their products than just about anyone else. Definitely more than Panasonic. So if you look at the Panasonic equivalent, it's got a grip on it, but I find it to be kind of ugly. It's a pretty camera overall, but it's not anywhere near as pretty as this thing. So that's why I paid the kind of £200 premium for this. Now you might think, what a mug, and fair enough, but if you're interested in aesthetics and that's important to you, why not? You know, I have a vague artsy kind of background, went to art school, was training as a draftsman, wanted to be an architect, that kind of thing. Didn't work out. 1990s recession, all in the past. Let's not go there. But yeah, it was fun. And so product design, or what people now call industrial design, is kind of my thing. You know, it's a blokey thing, bits and pieces things, you know, so yeah, it's one of those things that's I've always been interested in. So from a design point of view, I think it's important to have something that you want to actually interact with. People used to talk about the feel in the hand, the materials, and just the way Leica arrange things on the camera. And I used to think, yeah, whatever. Actually, there's something to that. In my experience of using this over the last 6 months or so, this thing's an absolute joy to use. Now I've got big spider-like hands, and so this is a very petite little camera, which means it's great for grab and go. It's the perfect everyday sort of driver, if you like, everyday use thing. But if you've got big hands like me, where do you put all your fingers? So I've made some changes. I got this really lovely leather and aluminium billet milled case for it, and you've got an open chassis at the bottom, so you can get to your camera, battery, and your SD card, which is great. It uses the tripod mount, but it gives you another one which is central, which is fantastic. Extremely well engineered, with a genuine leather cover on it as well. I got this from AliExpress. I think it was like £38, which is probably just over under $50, I would say, which is fantastic value compared to the Leica ones. I think it's actually better thought out and engineered than the Leica ones. This grip makes a fantastic addition to the handling of the camera. It lengthens it this way, so my big spidery hands have somewhere to clutch. I also paired it with this Amazon Jobby wrist strap, which is great and very comfortable. And I put this natty little thumb grip into the flash attachment thing. What's it called now? Flash shoe, I think it's called. That made a huge difference to the handling as well. I got it in a nice aluminium to go with the camera's aluminium body. Great stuff. And I've actually added also a black Leica dot, so Leica produced an APS-C camera a few years ago, and they did a version called the Bauhaus version, which was monochromatic, and they put a black Leica dot instead of a red Leica dot in there. I thought, you know what, that looks great. And there was a guy, I think he was an engineer or a machinist, on Etsy, I think from Canada, and he did a limited run of Leica badges, black badges, monochrome badges. Some had Leica, some had Lux relief sort of print on them, and other fun things like yikes and other things. I thought it was really good. So I bought one of those, and I followed a YouTube tutorial about how you can take off and on a Leica badge using the same techniques as they use in the Leica factory when they service the camera. I thought it was a really interesting challenge, so I did all of that, and I got my nice unofficial Lieca D-Lux 7 Bauhaus variant. I love the look of this thing. So okay, so I think I've gone over all the changes and all the aesthetics and things and what I like about the camera physically. So what's it like to use? Well, about every week or so I go up to London and I do things up there. I've got friends and family up there and other things, and I love to bring a camera, and I do some street photography, and that's what really got me into cameras and photography over the last year. Got me on this kind of gear acquisition syndrome problem, got me into that, and so I've brought this up there quite a few times. And what's interesting is this whole idea, this whole thing about what it's like to use the camera. I found out, from that experience, what that means, and there is a lot of truth to that. These things, or at least this version of the Leica range of cameras, it's just so nice to use. As much as I like to interact with it, I like what it looks like. It's very tactile, it's very aesthetic, and it feels great in the hand. When I'm using it, I just forget the camera. It's really weird. When I look at it, I want to grab it and play with it because of how cool it is to look at and how it feels in the hand. And these additions have actually enhanced that. However, when I'm actually using it to take pictures, it doesn't get in my way, not even psychologically. As soon as I've got it in my hand, I'm just thinking about what I'm looking at, and the camera just melts away. It's really interesting. I haven't really experienced that with any other camera so far, not to that extent. I don't know if that's something which is peculiar to Leica and that's what people are raving about, or it's peculiar to this particular model and how I've kitted it out and how it suits me. I don't know, but that's what I can say. My experience of using this thing, when I've got it in my hands and I've got it on and I'm using it, it just seems to melt away, and I'm just thinking about what's in front of me, what I'm looking at, angles, lines, light, subject, those kinds of things, composition. That's what's in my head. So there's something invaluable about that, I think, and the extent to which this camera brings that out is different to the other cameras I use. It is markedly different. That's what I'll say. So that I found really interesting. The way it deals with light and exposure is really, really good. I set it all up mainly on automatic ISO, which is light sensitivity, if you like, automatic shutter speed. The only thing I play with is you've got an aperture ring here, and then usually I've got it on auto. You've got, I think it's a 3x zoom there. But if I want to shoot wide open, then what's great is you've got this fantastic, very clicky, gorgeously engineered aperture ring. It feels great, and it locks into auto a bit too hard. When that loosens up, I think it'll be better, because you can jump from auto beyond the point you want to go to next to it. But I think that's nice. At least when it's in auto, it's not going to jump into any other mode you don't want. But what's nice about the way that they've graded it on the ring there is it goes from auto to wide open, and then the other different variations after that, which I think is good. It makes it very usable, because usually I'm either in auto or I want to shoot wide open. So I like the way they've got that done. You've got a focusing ring or a programmable ring there as well, and everything feels great on this camera. The way it's put together, the button feel, all that kind of stuff. So 3 things really. 3 reasons why I bought this over the Panasonic as an option. The design, and how that encourages me to interact with it and play with the camera. That gets you out of the chair and gets you outside and gets you where you want to be shooting. It's a motivating thing. The way it feels in the hand, the way it gets out of my way when I'm actually using it, and how strangely the camera kind of disappears and I'm focused on what I'm looking at and not what's going on with the camera, the ease of use, and then the images. So I'm going to do a little photo montage after this. You can have a look at that, and the images in that I haven't put through any kind of Photoshop filters. I don't think I've done anything on these, just cropped some of them. So they're more or less, if not entirely, straight out of camera. So have a look at those. I hope this was in some way informative and interesting, and hopefully even entertaining, who knows. What's interesting is most of my other cameras, just as an aside, they have flip out screens, apart from my Panasonic GM1. This doesn't. I thought I would miss that. Don't miss it at all. I find myself getting down low or moving my body around to get the angles I want. And yeah, there's something about this which is very grab and go. So that's an interesting thing I wanted to mention. And an interesting thing about the sensor is 24 megapixels sensor, but the usable area is about 18, because I've got this trick little thing to keep the size down, to keep that lens, that fantastic Leica Lumilux lens, I think it is, so short with that lovely zoom range. And it's got a toggle switch there for your zooming, which is nice, and it works nicely. Is that you've got four aspect ratios you can choose from, and they kind of crop into the sensor. You've got 4:3, 1:1 square, 16:9, which I usually use, and the classic kind of 3:2 as well on there. In terms of external buttons, you've got a 4K button there. You've got, what's that one? You've got an auto button there, on off toggle. This is your exposure compensation, and then you've got your shutter speed here. I tend to just use the exposure compensation, but even then I don't use that very much because this thing handles light really well. It's actually really good in low light as well. I know people say macro 4/3, a bit iffy. No, it's really, really good. You've got stabilization in the lens as well, which is fantastic for when you zoom. Honestly, this thing is a piece of work. It's very, very good. So another thing I added was, I think I talked about this Leica lens hood, lens cover thing. So I'll turn the camera on and you can see how it works. It's automated. So it pops out like that, and it's got this kind of leaf shutter kind of effect to it, which is really cool. And that's a fun thing to play with, but it also protects the lens. There was some debate online about the older versions of these lenses and dust ingress and things like that. They're not weather sealed, these cameras. So this is, I would say, really a fair weather camera. If it's very dusty, very, very moist or foggy, I wouldn't really take this one out. This one I kind of pet. Good sunny days, great travel camera, great. On the beach, I'd be wary of taking this. I would never put it in my pocket because, as you're probably aware, most cotton trousers and things, they treat them with these little stone things to give them that weathered look. If that gets into the camera, it's not good news. So I use a camera bag for this, and because it's so small, you can have a really small camera bag. And yeah, I think I've covered more or less everything with this now. To put it simply, this is a camera I'd find very hard to sell on. I absolutely love it just as a piece of design. And it's just one of those little gems, really. I can't say enough about it. I can't think of any downside to this, really, apart from the fact that it's not weather sealed. Okay, but I'm not a pro. And even if I was a professional photographer, I wouldn't necessarily use this for professional use unless it's a really sunny day. This is just one of those cameras you grab and go with and have some fun with. And I just love using this thing. My problem at the moment is what camera to choose. All the cameras I've got, I really enjoy using, and I think that's a good complaint. Anyway, I'll end it there. I hope you're having a good Christmas holiday, if you're having a Christmas holiday, and I hope the new year is a good one for you. Enjoy the montage. Any comments are welcome. Any criticisms or corrections for mistakes I've made, I welcome as well. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.